Hello again, everyone, and welcome to another session of Food for Thought as part of our NASEF Farmcraft live streams. I am Eric Leitner, your STEM and computer science instructional facilitator and Minecraft. I see Kathy doing hands up. You make me laugh during my introduction. All right, fine. And global Minecraft mentor. And we are, of course, so excited for the topic today. I don't want to give it away yet. So we're going to do introductions, but we have like the most exciting topic today. So I'm excited. So I'm going to pass the mic to Kathy real quick for a quick introduction. And we'll go from there. Kathy.
All right. Thanks so much, Eric. I'm Kathy Chow Isaacs, global Minecraft mentor and currently game design and development teacher at William Annan and Bridge High School. So thrilled to be here. Very excited for this week's Food for Thought. Can't wait to chat about this topic. So let me continue the introductions and pass it along to Samantha. If she's going to introduce herself.
No,
We're going to make her.
She has to. So hi, everyone. My name is Samantha Anton, and for NASEF, I have been helping on the Farmcraft team. We've all been working together, planting the seeds, tending to the weeds, taking care of everything. And so, yes, that's mostly what I've been doing, helping teams feel prepared to submit their Flipgrid videos and get their scores onto the leaderboard. And as an avid gardener myself, this has been the perfect combination of Minecraft and the joys of everything else in life.
Work and play.
All right, Brian, you chimed in at the perfect time.
Yeah,
First of all, Sam, I want to prop out you leaning into puns during the introduction this time.
Yeah,
well done.
Totally.
Leaning hard into
started,
the puns.
everyone.
That's right.
Just totally stole all the dad opportunities there. I mean, what's the deal with that?
I don't know. Go for it, Brian.
Okay, cool. So my name is Cleverlike. I am the official, unofficial mayor of Farmcraft. I make video games for a living. I made Farmcraft the game, and I'm responsible for any pain and suffering that might be happening for you guys as you're learning and playing this game. And I apologize, and you're welcome.
Awesome. And so those are our usual suspects, right? We're the group that's always here, but we are so very excited about our special guest that is joining us for this live stream, for this Food for Thought, because we get to talk about one of our favorite things, by far for me, I'm not going to lie. And that's not to take away from any of our other guests. They were awesome topics. They were so much fun. But we get to talk about bugs. Who doesn't want to talk about bugs? And we get to do so with the amazing Dr. Shavonn Whiten. So I would like to introduce Dr. Shavonn. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks so much, Eric, and thank you to the team for helping me get up to speed as it relates to Farmcraft. I do not profess to be a professional. I am an entomologist by training, so can answer any question you have along those lines. I'm currently an agricultural biotechnology international research advisor with U.S. Agency for International Development. And so many of the topics, tools that you guys will use today over the past 8 years or so prior to joining USAID, I utilized many of these in the laboratory setting to think of novel ways to control insect pests. Currently at USAID, I use global for global science, pretty much helping to improve crop development, decrease malnutrition, poverty, and hunger around the world. So hopefully we can talk along those lines, and I'm here to answer any questions that you guys may have as we move through the game. Back over to you, Eric, and thanks so much.
Absolutely. We're so happy to have you. Wow. And this sounds fantastic because I'm going to be honest, when it comes to questions or comments, the number one feedback we get from students, aside from what they did, what they've learned, and so on, is, oh my goodness, the bugs. So they stress about the bugs in the game. So good job there, Cleverlike. They definitely, it is a point of contention for them. But we want to talk more about that in detail. Is it always a point of contention for our farmers? What decisions do our farmers have to make when it comes to controlling insect populations? What are the positives and negatives of those controls? So we're going to dig into that conversation pretty deeply. Before we do, we're going to jump in
Wait.
Wait, what did I forget? What did I forget?
Oh,
Before we jump in,
Okay, before we jump
how does
in.
one begin the study of bugs? Like,
Ooh.
I know that for myself, they intrigue me, but I want to stay away from them. I like avoiding them. So how did you, where did this interest start, and how did you, decide to study, and what path did you take?
Great question, Kathy. I think bugs actually chose me. All the places that my education has taken me, I think the name that resonates is the bug lady. But I would honestly say my interest in bugs started well before I even realized it myself. I'm from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. So we have bugs all around. It's the perfect environment for bugs as ectotherms to really thrive and survive. Since their temperature is regulated by the outside temperature. So, but I think when it came full circle for me was I was overseas doing an international summer program at the University of Cape Coast in Cape Coast, Ghana, and really saw the impacts that bugs, in particular mosquitoes, were having on individuals. And so I came back to the US with this readiness and desire to dive into this challenge that not only led me from mosquitoes, I worked on bed bugs, cockroaches, termites, and even now at USAID, I'm working very closely with scientists from all around the world as it relates to desert locust and fall armyworm. So it is definitely, I would have to say bugs chose me, and I just had to go along for the ride.
Kathy, this is why I keep you around. That's a better question than any of the other questions we're going to have today.
yeah, that was
No. It's as good. But I always wonder, how did you get there?
Yeah.
I don't know that I've met any adults that started where they ended. And that's a good thing. It makes for really fantastic storytelling and
Yes.
leads to, hopefully students realizing that these paths are constantly shifting for us. So that's great.
Be open to the adventure is what I'll say. Exactly.
I love it. That is a perfect way to put it.
Right.
So let's get our game up on screen.
Let's
see everybody in the lobby, and I think we're all here. So I see Clever Like, I see Kathy, I see Sam, and over here behind me, Dr. Shavonn is with us and moving around like a pro, I might add.
Yeah.
So before we jump into a biome, and we are going to kind of just slowly play through a biome, so I doubt we'll finish a full playthrough of the game today. We've got some insects right here in the lobby that Brian has put here for us, perhaps decorative, but when we talk about insect populations and controlling insect populations in terms of crops, which is something that a decision our students have to make as they play through the game, we don't dig too deep into the positives of insects, right? And so here we have bees, which, if students are following the news and things like that, they know there are concerns around them because perhaps they are more of one of the positives. So can you tell us a little bit more about how farmers or how farming as a practice is addressing the differences in insects that are positive to that environment and how they can be positive? And that was a pun. I'm just going to say it was a pun.
Yeah,
be positive.
Be positive.
And those that we have concerns about, right? That we would consider pests.
All righty, great question, Eric. And so a portion of my research throughout my master's actually really looked at the off-target effects, as we call them, in the field when we're controlling for various insects that we've classified as pests that cause harm to our desired crop or anything of that nature. You always have to be mindful of the environment because there are insects that are indeed beneficial. And bees are an excellent example that have received a lot of attention in the news. And so for my research, I focused in on insecticides. These are chemicals that are used to control insect pests. In my case, I focused on mosquitoes. But when we were controlling for mosquitoes, the insecticides that we used they were broad spectrum. So while you were trying to control the bad, you inadvertently affected the positive or the good insects as well, which you want to keep around because bees are natural pollinators. And so we had to really come up with this integrated approach where you draw on a whole toolbox of different techniques that can help to control the target insect or the pest at hand, but also is friendly to the insects that we want to keep in our environment and keep our farming system going.
So that doesn't sound like an easy balance. I'm just going to say that.
No, it's not. It's not an easy balance, but hopefully some of the folks on this game will transition from Farmcraft to real world scientists and can help us take on this challenge as you move in your careers.
I love that.
Yeah.
Hope so. Hopefully we've inspired a few. All right, so we are going to jump into one of our 5 biomes, and one we haven't shared on the stream yet. And specifically, we've decided to choose one today where insects are a serious issue. So maybe this is one of those ones where the students tried to play this one and came back with that, oh my goodness, the caterpillars were too much sort of thing. So that's the island biome. So we're going to talk to our island biome farmer here. And it says that the island biome is right on the water and gets lots of rain. Lots of interesting insects live here, even though the sandy soil isn't always best for plants. Can you keep your crops growing and uneaten? Right, there's a really specific one, until they're ready to be harvested. So we're going to go ahead and play into that biome. And so now we are all mashed together, but we're here on the island. We'll spread out a bit.
Oh, I fell in the water.
You fell in the water. That didn't take long.
I know.
Yes.
Ooh.
I want to point out that Dr. Shavonn literally no issues, walked like right down the path, no problem, directly to the farm.
Hey, I'm trying to find the directions on the different options that we have.
Oh, okay. So I am talking to the farmer here, and it's welcome to our island. We live near the water, and we get lots of rain too. The beach is a difficult place to grow plants, and the bugs love it here. And running a farm, of course, costs money, which is something we hear in every biome, right? I think everywhere we go in the world, the farming costs money. All right, so let's get started with this one. We're going to follow our farmer over to the farm. All right, and we're going to start here as we get into our options and our soil. And of course, one of the first things we see as our options are, or among our options, I should say, for spraying options is the insecticide spray. And we see some options, of course, when we talk to our other farmer in each of our biomes as well. And I know Brian has dropped some hints about that, and maybe we'll get some more in-game hints this time as we play along. I'm dropping that for everyone who is scared of the insects at this point. But we want to take a look at, so you had mentioned insecticide sprays. So my question is this, we talked about, the difference between positive and negative sort of, balancing those insects that are positive to our farm and positive to the environment to those that are harmful to our crops. Are there specific ones that we focus on? So you had mentioned at the beginning some of the species or types of insects that you were focused on. Are there main groups that we tend to focus on, or that scientists specifically have concerns about more so than others, or are there good and bad amongst all types of insects?
I honestly would say that there are good and bad among all types. It depends on the climate, the elevation. There are various things that play into where insects are present. And oftentimes it also depends on the threshold. Insects in a small amount, even if it is a pest, may not be of greater concern. But as you get larger populations, they reproduce, they mate, and have offspring. When the pressure is higher, then that may warrant or present a problem. And so one thing to keep in mind is as climate continues to change, insects are better able to thrive and invade into new territories that they may not have previously been able to survive. So you now have the challenge of creating novel and unique ways to control insects as we deal with climate change. So.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So we're having the conversation, and I'm trying to progress through the game because, of course, we want to get to some of the parts in the game where we're making decisions around how we're going to handle our insect populations, whether that's through insecticide or the seeds that we choose and things like that. For the students who have played it, they're familiar with that. So if everyone wants to go over to the farmer by the lighthouse.
I just chucked a hoe out.
Oh, did you just throw some out there for everyone?
No one's throwing one?
Who doesn't have one?
I don't have one.
There you go.
One.
There you go.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to work together real quick and get this all tilled so we can kind of advance to some of those steps where we're really focused more on the insect populations that are here. So let me ask you another question while we're doing that. Since we're tilling soil, let's talk about soil specifically a little bit, and maybe what insects can be helpful or harmful, or things that we would just use the term bugs, I guess, more generally, can be helpful or harmful to soil quality. Because as I'm sure our students are sort of figuring out, right, the quality of the soil is a huge factor in Farmcraft. So how do insects affect that?
There are a multitude of insects that can affect soil quality. So you have different approaches, but there are also beneficial insects that can also help to preserve and keep a steady soil quality. So I think it just depends. We're in a specific biome right now, but someone in another part of the world may be experiencing another pest that they would have to uniquely develop an approach or a control strategy. So I definitely always tell folks, be very cognizant of where you are and the environment that you're in, because what may work here in the US may not work in some other part of the world. So, and soil quality does change. So.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And again, like I think that was one of the reasons behind the development of the various biomes is to take a look at those different places. So I'm doing something I normally don't do, and I'm bringing this car around to pick everybody up.
Yeah, Dr. Shavonn can hop in. I'll stay back.
I was going to say we've got one less seat.
Siobhan, you should sit in the front. Hold on, let me get out.
You're going to take shotgun? Yeah, if you right click on that seat, you'll hop in shotgun. We'll all get teleported anyway. All right.
She's definitely been practicing.
We get to listen to the noise of the engine.
She was tilling like a villain. She was.
That car, it's an ATV. It went up the stairs.
Oh yeah, no, I'm totally good with off-roading in this thing.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah,
Eric's
all-terrain vehicle. We're good. So we're going to head to the lab where we're going to make some of the decisions around insect populations in our game. I love the teleportation noise that you get when you go through the tunnel.
Sam and I are like running after the car.
All right. Oh, you're driving now. If you hit the space bar and just jump, you will jump out of the car. There you go. All right, so we're going to head up into the lab. And of course, on our left, we have our scientists that provide us with information. And this one right here is going to provide us with some information on insect resistance, right? So we want to talk about insect resistance in crops and what that may specifically mean. So the information here says insects come in many shapes and sizes. Some of them love to eat crops. I do like that it used the word some, right? Because I think that's what you've kind of covered for us. They're not all doing that, but some of them definitely are. Infestations of these insect pests can destroy entire fields of crops. They can be eliminated as they attack your crops, but be careful that you don't hurt your own plants. Insecticide and bug remover sprays are chemicals that can kill insect pests, but they will also kill other kinds of insects too, which can be harmful to the environment. Well, that was a nice quick summary of what you gave us in far more detail and far more interesting manner.
What else do insects like to eat?
Oh, Kathy, you want me to go there? Insects do a multitude of things.
Right.
I have a sense of where this is going.
Insects do feed on plant matter. They also, in particular, mosquitoes feed on blood, female mosquitoes. But there are also some beetles, dung beetles in particular, which feed on poop. So insects have over time evolved. They are some of the most intricate organisms on the planet, have really evolved adaptive ways to survive and thrive in various environments. So insects some do eat poop as well.
So then they're not, then some are herbivores and some are omnivores?
I don't know if there's a poopivore, Kathy. If that's the word you're looking for.
I think we need to make a classification for poopivores.
That's right. But would we argue that those insects that do that eat poop, I'm just going to use the word because I get a chance to.
I know, how lucky are we?
We get to say poop a bunch today. Are some of the ones that may be helpful because are they breaking that down to add those nutrients to the soil, right?
Exactly. Those are helpful.
Yeah. I was going to say, because, again, like fertilizers and things like that, we know that manure, things like that are, right? Manure. We get to use a fancier word like manure, although, again, we just say poop. Can we just say you spread poop around?
That's right.
Okay.
We'll use manure from here on out, but it was nice to use poop.
We'll go with manure now that we've got better terms, right? More. Okay. Right.
Dr. Shavonn, come over to this side of the lab. You're going to see the seed-o-matic.
So I have a question, though. I have a question.
Okay.
Normally on our streams, we would kind of do the thing that addresses the concern in the biome. In this case, we've learned that the concerns in this particular biome seem to be soil related and insect related. But how do we feel about not purchasing the insect resistance in an environment where insects are the problem, so we can kind of see the insects in action?
Yeah. Let me give you a tip. This is a good time for me to jump in because
yeah.
So like Dr. Shavonn was saying, like there's if you use insecticide, you have to be careful because you're attacking the pests, but also you could be getting some of the good ones as well. So there is a little bit of a trade-off if you decide to use it. So we do have a big bug problem, but the interesting thing about the insect problem, first of all, the number of butterflies is related to the number of caterpillars that you're going to see. So there's a little hint there. And and they're tied together. So if we have a lot of caterpillars, we're going to have a lot of butterflies. If you clear out the butterflies, you earn coins. So as a way of basically rewarding you for not using insecticide, if you get rid of the butterflies, you earn coins, which you could use later to manage your problem more directly rather than in a broad way. So so you think about it, if you do the genetic engineering, you basically reduce your bug problem as a whole, but maybe you want the bug problem as part of your economy that you're creating in the game. And so
that makes sense. So we still do have to choose seeds. And I love the notion that the butterflies and the caterpillars are linked because of course they are, but we have to choose seeds. So we're going to see what it's like when we don't make them insect resistant. But let's still deal with the soil issue, right? So we are going to do some hardier seeds that can handle the environment and the soil that are here. So I'm going to go ahead and we will choose that option for 150 coins. And this is the best part. This is the best part.
You could spend more money because we're going to earn a lot more. We're going to earn more money.
Okay. So what do you think we should put it into? Right. We could look at drought tolerance, right? Because we are in a sandy one, but it does rain a lot on the island, so maybe that's not an issue.
Yeah, I mean, we could do you could do the weeds, which will reduce our overall weed problem.
That would give us time to talk more and pick weeds less.
Oh yeah, let's do that.
Yeah,
Let's do
yeah.
that.
Okay, let's do that. Especially since that's our first few waves.
Yeah.
All right. So we are going to go ahead and get our seeds. We'll push the button and let's watch the Seedtron 5000 in action.
This is so amazing.
I love it.
The magic of science before your eyes. What are some ways that genetic engineering can work to help prevent insects from eating crops without spraying chemicals?
So one that has been receiving a lot of attention lately as relates to crop are it's a technology that has been utilized to create what they call friendly fall armyworms, and it's through Oxitec. And what they do is create a larger population of genetically engineered male mosquitoes. And what you'll do is inundate or really release a large amount into the population, and they would mate with females. And so ideally, this is a way to control that pest. But this work was previously done with mosquitoes. So it shows how technology can actually transfer from one insect to another. And it's a novel way to really control and not as heavily have to draw on those various chemicals that can be harmful in large amounts and can definitely remove some of those more beneficial insects. So if you want to know more, I would say definitely check out. Those are some of the cool studies that are going on now in parts of South America and also here in the US, down in Florida.
My neck of the woods. All right, so we're going to head back to our farm. So we're going to take we'll take the car if no one stole the car. Nope, no one stole the car.
All right.
I'm surprised that hasn't happened yet. I'm surprised no one has done that during our stream, just taken it and left. Let's hop back in. All right, anyone want to hop in the back? We only had folks in the front before. Who wants to hop in the back?
I think.
Oh, it just doesn't.
I think what happens is it's order.
It'll teleport also, like it's basically going to teleport anything you dropped and any players that haven't left yet. It'll teleport them to the biome if they're not in the vehicle when it goes through the teleporter. So,
And
actually,
Kathy, you're driving because I know.
Oh, I'm driving. All right.
You're totally driving this time.
that could be a strategy in some biomes because you get teleported closer to the farm when you're not in the vehicle. So you could actually start.
Get in the car. All right. Siobhan, you're not in the car.
Right click to hop in. You got
giving away all the tips.
Your head is on the car.
Yes, you are like in the car. Right.
Yeah,
click.
you got to back up a little bit and then right click in the center of the vehicle.
Okay, let me see. How do I? S is to back up.
Yep, there you go. And then right click in the center of the vehicle.
There you are. You're in the back.
Yeah, you're in.
Okay, alrighty, I am in.
All right, Kathy, let's do this.
Driving.
Kathy and I were.
Kathy, you made a wrong turn. Turn us around.
I would be remiss though if I didn't mention some of the cool work that USAID is actually overseeing and that I've been fortunate to work on. You asked about approaches that have technologies that utilize some of those more novel technologies so we don't have to use insecticides. Across sub-Saharan Africa, a key commodity is cassava. And so we've come up with novel approaches to really create virus-resistant cassava for Africa. And really, this is a novel approach that has potential to really revolutionize the use of insecticides and how we control certain pests that transmit disease across sub-Saharan Africa, and really impact the ability to feed some really integral populations around the world. So that is one thing that I wanted to bring to the forefront.
Right, and that's something that we don't actually have in our first run of Farmcraft. And again, we've got a lot, but we don't have choosing specific crops that may feed, based on what the population is and how many need to be fed, right? So again, while we're making lots of choices in here, something, and students are starting to realize how many difficult choices farmers have to make. We're really scratching the surface of the choices that they're making because, we're still limited to just a few here. Kathy, did you park the car in the middle of the farm?
Oh, am I still in the car?
You're still driving the car.
Well, I got close to the farm.
Let's see. How do I get out of the car?
There you go.
Oh, you just did it.
Brian's going to go park. Oh, we're missing. There you go. I was going to say, we already lost one. I think we already lost one. Somebody jumped. That's okay.
So definitely choosing a crop, I will say. Cassava is a big one that I work on. Also, late blight resistant potato. That's another big crop that is receiving a lot of attention for some of the work that I'm doing. So just really knowing what's rotation, what different pests are affecting your commodities, and drawing on different technologies to really control and what we call in an integrated pest management approach, where you draw on the various tools that your toolbox will have.
So the idea of rotating crops to control pests is the idea, just so I want to make sure I'm understanding it, is the idea that if we remove a particular crop, then the pests that feed on that crop will disappear. And then when we plant a new crop, basically it gives us time before the pest that may feed on that one kind of propagates, and we can kind of keep things before they get out of control.
Okay, some folks may have heard of it, but there is a method. So in that integrated approach that draws on several different technologies, be it utilize insecticides, biological control with insects, there's also you can do what's called a push-pull method, where there are certain crops that will pull an insect and then repel a certain insect. So that's an approach that has been heavily researched and really drawn upon in the literature as we draw on. I like to always think of entomology and specifically pest control, this toolbox of approaches that you can draw on.
Right. So speaking of bugs,
what a segue.
I'm gonna make that pun because I see you running around. We may have to jump out of this world and jump back in. It looks like we've hit a little bit of a glitch. Oh no, there we go. You got it. I could always count on you, Mayor. All right, so it looks like we're back in action. Next day we'll be starting soon, and we're going to start with some weed and things, weed issues and things. But we did choose the herbicide-resistant crop. So we'll see if we can get that one under control pretty quickly. I was literally ready to pause out of here and like, go back in and things like that, and make sure that we could do that. So in the next day or two in our game, we're going to start to see weeds cropping up, and then of course we'll start to see our insect population, which we took no measures to control whatsoever so far. So let me ask you a question. When would that process usually, let's talk about that process, right? So we want to control insects for a certain area, for a certain farming practice or farm. When does that process, or when does that thinking begin? Like, where does that process begin, right? I assume it doesn't happen, mid farming cycle. So where does that process begin?
As far as controlling and the mitigation practices,
yeah, we haven't done anything yet. That's why I'm asking.
I honestly would say it starts, ideally, if there's a pest problem previously, you would already have the knowledge that there's the potential for reoccurrence. But if not, as soon as you see, we talked about infestations, but you just don't want it to get to where there's a large pressure and it makes it harder to control the pest. So the earlier, the better.
Which is what we're doing right now. So
exactly.
Our first pest has arrived in mass quantities. That might be the most butterflies I've seen spawn in one shot. Yeah, and we're probably going to get a few more before the day is out, even this cycle. And sometimes they don't even show up in the first day, depending on the biome you're in or what you've done, what decisions you've made. Yeah. So let me go into this question, because this one I think is a unique situation, and I love that we picked it in this instance, right? So we think of butterflies as pollinators, right, which could make them beneficial to our crops. Yes. But their offspring are the ones eating the crops. So how do we balance something like a moth or a butterfly problem, let's say, or specifically let's use butterflies because of what they eat. How do we balance an issue like this, where we get a problem with butterflies and then caterpillars, when one stage of that life cycle is positive, right, and the pollinator that we need for our plants, and one life cycle, like the caterpillars, is negative because it's eating our crops? So how do we balance that when it's the same insect doing both?
I think it honestly boils down to a trade-off. So as Eric mentioned, insects have multiple stages of development in many cases. And so for holometabolists, those are insects that undergo this entire life cycle where they start off as an egg, they go to a larva or the caterpillar, and then they go to a pupa and then the adult. And so in that case, the adult is the butterfly, and we all love butterflies. But the caterpillar stage, in some cases, has the potential to feed on the foliage, the leaves of the plant, and cause severe damage to the potential crop. So it honestly boils down to being a trade-off, and ultimately we need the food to eat as humans and really to keep our systems going. So you would ideally have to choose to control the caterpillar stage, and that would ultimately affect the number of butterflies in downstream, or in most cases, most of the pests are actually moths, not butterflies.
Right.
So would this be an instance where quantity may be a factor, right?
Exactly.
More so okay.
The pest pressure.
Wait,
pest pressure.
Pest pressure.
I love that. I love that jargon.
There are many uses for that term.
I feel like those students who have been complaining about the caterpillars have experienced some pest pressure.
Pest pressure, for sure.
That's right. We're putting that term right in the game next time.
They're pretty hardy. They will chomp away at all of your crops if not controlled properly.
Right. And so far, I feel like we're doing pretty good. We've controlled quite a bit of the butterfly population that's coming in. We're managing the water and the herbicide to keep the weeds under control, because we haven't had a major weed problem. Although Kathy, I totally saw that right as I said it.
I was thinking,
so much trouble.
I was there. I looked away. I looked away.
Yeah. We're doing a great job. We have so many crops that are intact, and then I broke it.
Yes. What do we do about our Kathy pest problem?
We have a request in chat, actually.
Yes, Sam.
We have a request to talk about cicadas.
Ooh.
And apparently there's a big swarm arriving to DC.
Yes.
Yeah, that's not a problem that comes up every year, is my understanding.
Well, it comes up. I feel like, doesn't it come up every year, but it's like the big swarms?
It's not every year with the larger swarm. So yes.
Right, not, yeah, the larger swarms come up every several years. Because I feel like the 17 years, that can't have been 17 years since the last one.
Exactly. And taking it more global, something similar that you guys may have heard of, and with the pandemic and ongoing effects of it on a more global scale, desert locusts are also doing something similar across sub-Saharan Africa and Pakistan and parts of India as well. They're really impacting crop production, crop yield, and things of that nature. So scientists like myself are working very diligently to try to come up with control methods and also surveillance methods. I mentioned that, you know, you want to watch and see when the pressure gets elevated. So that requires surveillance. And so there are planes that fly around and drones and things of that nature and really survey the land to take pictures and really kind of help us determine where might the pest be going next, where would it invade to next, and how can we get ahead of it? So if as it crosses across a given continent or a given country, how can we be one step ahead of the pest to control?
That's great. A great technology opportunity, you know, for kids that are getting interested in drones and programming and things like that. You can actually program a robot drone to help you with agriculture.
Exactly. Yeah, so that is one thing. We as scientists, we work very closely with engineers, economists. There are so many disciplines that draw into this control method, and we work collaboratively. Everybody has their unique skill set. So some folks may want to be scientists, also can be an engineer and work very closely with agricultural systems. So,
yeah, that's awesome.
I'm just frantically swatting at butterflies. Forgive me.
So if you look at our coins, we're at 285 coins, which means we have a lot of money to maintain our soil level. We have the ability to maintain our fertilizer level. So we should have our soil quality and water levels maintained high. That should be something we stay on top of. And then when the later we will, you know, I bought some bug spray for everybody, which you could use to right click on caterpillars when they're within your crops and you don't want to break the crops. You can basically, the spray will target that individual pest and remove.
You know, we had some students who were asking what the benefit of the bug remover spray was. And I guess if they realized they were punching their crops instead of punching the bug.
Yep.
And we're using the term punching because that's just kind of how Minecraft works. But
so you right click with the bug spray and it can eliminate the caterpillar without eliminating your crop.
Without eliminating the crop. Okay. I think I might have eliminated a crop.
I definitely eliminated one. And I was going to say, no one saw me do that. And then I remembered that I'm sharing my screen. So
everyone saw you do it.
There's also a butterfly net that you can get that you could use to right click. See our soil just change color, so that's when we start getting water penalty. So I'm going to water it, and now we don't have a water penalty. So we keep our water penalty down when our soil is dark and moist.
Makes perfect sense. What did we do?
Another question from the chat.
Yes.
So this one says, what does Dr. Whiten recommend students do to prepare studying entomology, and what types of careers are out there for entomologists?
Awesome.
As more bugs come. Well, bug swatting.
Yes, there's a big career in bug swatting.
To get us started.
So that's a two-part question. What can you do to prepare, and what are the opportunities is what I kind of gather from that. Honestly, depending on where you're at in undergrad, high school, I would say definitely master the sciences. Entomology it draws on several disciplines. So I use toxicology, I use biochemistry, I use organic chemistry, I use molecular biology. So these are all areas that help when you're in a laboratory setting. I would say get out in the field. Really try to get opportunities to work with scientists, even if it's doing field work. That is kind of how I started, and look for summer research opportunities. there are a lot of opportunities, even if you're in middle school and high school. I know some that we at USAID offer to get kids engaged in science, but not just science, but science on a more global level. And then what else would I say? Just be open. And I always call it the wonderful world of entomology, FULL. There are so many opportunities across entomology. I have worked in the area of medical entomology. I've worked in veterinary entomology, looking at how bugs affect livestock and different animals. I've also worked in urban entomology. So in our homes, there are many structural pests, from bed bugs, cockroaches, and termites and things of that nature that wreak havoc on our home, our living dwellings. So really just exploring and asking scientists what they do. I honestly will tell you, I initially wanted to be a veterinarian, then I wanted to be a neonatologist, and then a cardiologist. So, and I shadowed all of them, and I ended up on research and then entomology. So start asking folks, and if you see a scientist, I'm certain they will be open to sharing their knowledge with you.
Yeah, that's important, because people do their work because they love it, and if you ask them about it, they'll love to tell you about it.
They'll talk about it all day.
They'll love to give you an opportunity if they can, like
Exactly.
So that being connected as a young person. That
Yeah.
marks the beginning of the caterpillars.
So Brian, I saw you running around throwing the bug remover spray at everyone. And I wonder if, we talked about it a little bit, and now we'll see it in action, but I wonder if any of the students, maybe even on the call or anything, have kind of figured out, I'm going to throw some water over here.
Oh, I just did it. Sorry.
Oh, we both did. Couldn't hurt. A little extra water never hurt. I wonder if they have figured.
Those are some huge caterpillars.
Yeah.
It's
well,
Minecraft.
If we made
You
them
saw the
life
bees,
size,
right?
it would be hard, right?
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
Yeah. So
Center
you punch them if you see them not in the way of the crops, and you use the bug spray if they're inside of a crop and you don't want to lose it.
Okay.
Now the other thing we could do, we could buy a spray now, which only lasts per phase, like per day cycle, but it will at least stop the bugs from eating more than one crop, for instance. So
right.
What I've learned is, and Dr. Shavonn, maybe you could talk about this, is that the some of the genetic engineering of crops and the way pesticides work is that when the bug eats the plant, they die. So the genetic engineering makes the crop poison to the pest, as does a pesticide spray.
So you're indeed correct. And one technology is the Bacillus thuringiensis, or BT for short. It has been integrated into a few crop varieties. So we have BT eggplant, we have BT cowpea, we have various commodities that have utilized this technology, so that when the insect feeds upon the plant, it will have a negative impact on the insect itself. So you don't have to use as many insecticides as a result.
That's interesting.
Yeah, my question is this then: if we didn't do that, right? So we chose at the beginning sort of not to do anything that would cause our plants to be insect resistant, and the only thing that we sort of have, aside from like the hand-based sprays or the spray that we can spray on the crops daily, is the sort of muscle power, if you will, right? So we're playing multiplayer. We've got a lot of you farmers in here working together to mediate this problem. Is this even a viable solution, or how much, sort of quote unquote manpower would it take to deal with some of these problems if we were going to do it this way?
I think it definitely would take a large amount of manpower, but in this biome, we don't have the option to draw on other insects that maybe could feed on the caterpillars from the outside inward. Those are also parasitoids or things of that nature that are insects, but can be used for our benefit as well. So that is something to always consider. As you look at more of that integrated approach, I briefly touched on a few occasions here.
Yeah, I love that about farming, about how farming uses nature to combat nature. So your idea of like you combat an insect problem with insects that are the enemy of the insect, you know, and I think that's so creative that
the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Exactly.
That sort of logic. But you know, let's take that a step further and talk about how we can use nature to our advantage. So very often, students, teachers, adults, community members, you know, we see this very often in social media and things like that. We tend to immediately jump to the conclusion that all sort of quote unquote insecticides are man-made chemicals or synthetic chemicals, you know, that we're spraying upon the plants that have adverse side effects as well as positive ones. Are there examples of naturally acquired things that we use for that same purpose, or that can be used for that same purpose? And does that work in every situation, or is it maybe in specifics? And I totally just broke that crop and no one saw me do it, even though I just announced it to everyone.
So in general, insecticides are anything that any substance or thing that is used to control insect pests. So, and many of the synthetic insecticides are derived, or they come from natural products. So one of them that I worked on, it's a pyrethroid insecticide, and it is derived from a plant and its extract. So much of the synthetic science that we use today, it derives from something that was natural in the environment. So I think that's always one thing to bring home.
Right. So even the synthetic ones, even the ones that we're making, they're getting those ideas or learning, let's say, what is adverse to the insects in nature, right? Because there are probably things that insects would eat or come in exposure to naturally that would be harmful to them.
Exactly, as well.
That is super cool. Like I hate, you know, I'm going to use the most simplistic terms to words, but it's just super cool, right? Because it makes sense to find logic in. Let's just observe start with what we know, right? Start with what we can observe.
Exactly. I think that was one cool thing that I realized throughout my science journey, that many of the tools and technologies that we have that are man-made are derived from natural things or natural processes that were present in other organisms that we just adopted, tested in a lab, and then really extended those to trials in confined or closed environments. And then, you know, you just move through various stages of development of research that ultimately, after years and testing under multiple environments, under conditions, changing various things, you draw together a lot of data. That's what science is about, evidence. And so once you have a substantial amount of evidence, then maybe that technology can be applied more broadly. So I think that is definitely one thing to bring home, that as a scientist, you do a lot of observation, data collection, and analyzing the data. So if you like numbers, if you really enjoy being challenged, proposing a lot of questions, and then testing the questions, science is definitely an area for you to consider.
I love that. So I know we're reaching sort of the end of our conversation time-wise, and I know Sam would have chimed in by now if I'm not staying on time, and maybe she didn't chat it. You can see it right in a second. She's very good at keeping me on track. But is there anything that you'd want to say in closing, either to the students who are participating in the game, the teachers who are using this as a tool in their classrooms and maybe watching the live stream right now? If there's anything that we didn't cover that you'd want to add before we go, I kind of want to make sure you have the time to do so.
I think the only thing I would like to reiterate is science, you are the future. You're playing this game, but the game translates to real life, real world issues that are of global concern. And so if you have the slightest inkling or calling or enjoy many of the things that you see throughout this game, I would definitely say take it a step further, explore, ask questions to real life scientists, and for teachers and educators, keep the questions coming. That's what science is all about. Questions, and then being able to properly address those questions. So, and if I can answer any questions or if you have any other questions about my career path and how I got into science and what has kept me in science, more than willing to answer those.
All right. Anything else from the panel here before we move on? I'm curious to know how we're doing too. What stage are we in, Brian?
This will be the last one. Yeah.
All right, so we'll have to stick with it a little bit, even if we
We
do
have a
jump
lot
off
of
this
people
screen.
saying thank you to Dr. Whiten for joining us.
Yes,
and
and we want
also
to say thank you.
Uruguay.
Thank you guys for the opportunity. I don't know how much I helped with controlling the insects, but in real life, I can really help.
You know what?
She's the insider. She's like
That's right.
one. She's like the insect whisperer.
Right.
You gave us fantastic advice on how to handle this as best we can.
Yeah, I love the idea that what I like about the game, and some people are like insecticide, herbicide, chemicals. I don't want to do that, and like I think that's the catalyst. That's the purpose of the game, is to catalyze those emotions and those feelings, because the next question is, well, what would you do about it, and how would you solve it, and how do you, can you understand the real problems, and can you be the person that comes up with a better solution? So I think that's one of the nice things about the game in introducing all of these concepts, is that hopefully it makes you decide
the choices.
That you don't want to do something like, oh, I don't want to kill insects. Okay, then how do you still want to deal with the problem? Maybe you're the future. Maybe you're the person that could come up with a better solution.
And one of the things I love about science is this idea that wherever we are, whatever modern practices are, that's not the end, right? We can always continue to research, continue to study, and continue to improve our practice. So.
Exactly. And I think you guys were spot on. You not only provided the tools, but you have to make a choice based off of a budget. That is ultimately a key part of farming, keeping farming systems going. And then looking more broadly at, I work on the side of looking at U.S. investments in agricultural products around the world. So this is something we always have to take into account, is the trade-offs. How much does one thing cost? Or if we put our money here, what might other alternatives allow for? So really understanding that holistic approach and drawing on, I mentioned it briefly, but economics and understanding those principles as well. So.
Nice. Yeah. And in the island biome, you have to punch the crops because there's no room for a harvester.
Harvest. Okay.
But yeah, that's
fun, right?
We got a score.
We did. And so I think now is the perfect time to transition into the reminders for our students. So I'm going to jump away from here, but we got a score of 2147, which I'm actually pretty proud of, considering we did that while having a conversation. Yeah. But I feel like everyone contributed really well to that. Maybe we could have used our coins a little bit more, but we did a good job.
They count to your score though.
So now I think the question, right? So the question is, what do we do with that score? See my segue? You see my segue there?
You nailed it.
Wow.
Nailed it.
All right. So just a reminder to all of our students, the season is still going, although it's wrapping up soon. So for all those students that are watching, you can still submit your scores. You still have time to do that. And of course, you can do that at nasef.org/learning/farmcraft/leaderboard. And if that is too much to remember, you just head over to nasef.org, click on learning, head to Farmcraft. And if we scroll down, we will see the information about the regular season leaderboard right here. And that will give us our leaderboard. Now, there are some new things to look at on the leaderboard that you may want to check out. Thank you, Sam, for this. And that is if we scroll way down to the bottom. So when we first see the leaderboard, we see all of the scores from all of the biomes. But if you're curious about how your score stacks up in a specific biome, you can now scroll down to the bottom and you'll see that you can choose the cold, the desert, the island, or the temperate or the tropical biome.
Click
so if we chose an island, let's see how we did. Oh, you know what? We're still in the middle of the pack here.
We're in the middle.
There are some who are just showing us what's up. So there are some farmers with better practices out there than us. So we're going to have to keep playing and get better scores and submit those scores into the portal. And you still have time to do that. We do also want to remind you that the Flipgrid links are still active. So if you have not submitted your diary entries, of course, Challenge 3 is still live right now through Friday, and that is that due date. But if you have not submitted for regular season Challenge 2 or Challenge 1, you can make sure that those are in, because if you are going to be eligible to win any of the competition or the prizes, you do need all of those components to be in there. So if your diary entries are not complete, you have time to get that done. So make sure you do that. And you can do that, of course, through our Flipgrid site. Sam, am I forgetting anything? I got a head shake, no.
No, you did one of the best closings that we have had all
Yeah.
stream.
I feel like you're telling me to close it out now.
No. I was reading the chat. If you're continuing having problems with Flipgrid links, please email. Email us at info@nasef.org. I will be the one responding. So I will help you get your Flipgrid links. I just can't leave it in the chat because we need students to be registered to get access.
All right, so with that, I am going to stop my share and bring it back to us.
Okay.
We're back.
That was fun. Dr. Shavonn, that
fun.
was so awesome.
Thank
that
you
was
guys,
so much
Eric.
fun.
It was also thorough. We rarely actually get through the whole game on a stream.
Yeah.
Hey.
So that it went right along with what was going on screen. It was great. And a lot of good information.
Control, but tried to give as much information as I could.
You know what? You gave us the understanding of our purpose there. So, and I think that's the important part, right? We have students doing these things. We want them to understand the why, the challenges, and how, you know, real world scientists and real world people are dealing with those challenges. And you gave us all of that insight. So thank you so much for being here. Kathy is applauding. You can applaud louder now, Kathy, because
thank you guys so much for
we're beyond
helping
golf
me
claps.
not land in the water like I did the first time I tried this game.
Yeah, leave that part out. No one has to know about it.
All right, thanks everyone who's tuned in on the chat. We're gonna close our stream out here, so we'll talk next week.
All
right. So
Thanks,
thank you everyone for tuning in.
Thank you all very much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.